Welcome to Salve, a therapeutic podcast for digital ailments. We're here to ease your online aches and entrepreneurial anxieties, one session at a time. With our host, Jordan Brannon, and today's guest, Doug Drenkow, formerly of Coalition Technologies. Today's worrying condition? The aches, pains, and sense of isolation from extended periods working remotely.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Salve, Coalition's podcast, where we solve your digital aches and pains. My name is Jordan Brannon, and I am your host. I have a special guest with us, also from the Coalition team. Even though he's now retired, he still is very much a team member. I'll introduce him in just a moment, but today we are going to jump in and we're going to solve the ailment that happens when we sit still too long. The lower back pain, the shoulders as we work at a desk. We're coming after the challenges of really working remotely for a long period of time. And that is where I'm going to switch over and allow my special guest today to introduce himself, if he'd be so kind.
Oh, hi, I'm Doug Drenkow. I had been a digital strategist with Coalitions for years. Technically speaking, that's a sales position, but really our job was to assess the client's needs and see which of our many services as a full spectrum agency really best fit what they needed to get ahead with. So I'm happy to join you.
Awesome, Doug. So for those of you who don't know Doug and haven't met him, Doug was a long-standing team member of our digital strategy team, as he explained, and frankly, probably one of the team members who brought the most to our company working remotely. He didn't need the most senior management position to do it. Doug just had a warm presence, a very personal presence, and some sometimes awful and sometimes wonderful puns. Which he was happy to contribute throughout the time. And so that's why we wanted to have him here and to talk about the experience of remote work and remote work at Coalition specifically, and maybe again help treat some of your pains. Doug, so when did you start at Coalition? What was the a month and year, if you recall, that you kicked off your career as a digital strategist with us?
That was June 5th of 2017, I believe. Remember, it was the 5th because my previous boss wouldn't let me go on the 1st of the month because he had some extra work for me to do.
Awesome. So we managed to get you by the 5th of June, 2017. You just retired. You actually are our first retiree.
Oh,
Technically, I think you retired just after the first of the year. I think it was actually maybe the second.
mm-hmm.
But you were with us really for almost 8 years. Actually, almost 9 years. Is that correct? I'm
Eight
mapping
and
that
a
out. It's
half.
almost 9 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about maybe the experience of remote work. What were some of the pain points and challenges you experienced working remotely? And maybe also provide some context. Was this your first remote job? Had you worked remotely before, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay. This was technically my first remote job, but I've been doing, previous to this, a lot of computer programming and a lot of copy editing and writing. And in those positions, you're usually working on your own anyway. So even in my in my last job where I had my own office, the boss would check in on me, looking on me like once a day to make sure I was still alive, and and I would keep on working. So whether I had been at home, occasionally I'd be at home, but or in the office, I was self-motivated. I think that is the key to making remote work is if you're not self-motivated and self-disciplined, if you need to have your manager hovering over you every moment of the day, then remote work is probably not for you. But for most people who are responsible adults, as long as you have an access to someone who can answer your questions and to answer your question here, the key challenge is what if I didn't know the answer to a question of how to proceed? I would ask my manager, Carl, who's like the best manager in the world, and he would get back to me. He's a very busy person, but he would get back to me in relatively short order as soon as he could, with either the best answer or he would ask you, who is
Mm,
his manager. So being able to have someone available to answer your questions. And with the last part of this is we have nearly 300 full-time employees. We have this amazing brain trust, as I would always tell our clients or prospects. If I didn't know the answer to the question, I had somebody who would, and they would always be able to get back to me in usually an hour or so with the best answer in the business. So
mm.
being self-motivated, have that support network, that makes remote work work.
Awesome. And you actually had the chance to work with us in office in Los Angeles, where we're headquartered. So you had a little bit more of a comparison, maybe, than some of our team members who are only working remotely and have only ever worked remotely.
Mhm.
Maybe talk to me about what was sort of the high of in-person work, and maybe like it would probably feel like a little bit of a loss when you started working fully from home, and maybe what you would say were the real perks of remote work at Coalition, having had an office experience.
Mhm. In both cases, ironically, it was around lunchtime, in that, oftentimes, uh, the gang would get together at lunchtimes, and in fact, on Fridays, you and Joel, the owners of the company, would buy us all lunch, and we'd have nice lunches, and we would have a lot of talk and, just get to know you and be part of, the team. That sort of esprit de corps is what our
Hmm.
old band leader, who was a Marine, used to call it. Yeah, just being able to have a lot of camaraderie, get to know one another as people. And then at holidays, we're still talking. I remember talking to Tess the other day about the holiday dinners that we would have.
Mm,
Those were
yeah,
just especially special, but just the weekly get-togethers. So that is the perk of working in the office. At home, the perk is being able to have lunch with my wife
yeah. Okay.
on
Yep.
a
Good.
daily basis. Yeah.
All right. So lunch with the wife was the big perk of working from home. You lived in the Los Angeles area, which is notorious for traffic and for commutes. Do you feel like you will live longer for not having had to make your way into LA on a regular basis?
If I had been in the car, I'd be in the booby hatch by now. But, I took the train in
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
and to my previous job, it was a 2-hour commute by train each
Mm,
way every day, and sometimes you work 20, 30 hours straight programming. That was a long day.
right.
It was much more humane at Coalition. So the train was a nice, little ride, but is overall, even as close as we lived to the office there, it was 2 hours out of every day that
Mm,
I would rather have spent with my wife and sometimes, like Friday night trying to clean up loose ends before the weekend, I'd rather have spent, just doing busy work to get that out of the way for the next day. So, yes, the transportation, the commutes are just, to me, a waste of time.
they seem to be for a lot of people, and I know that there's a general belief that they shorten your lifespan as well. So I think there's probably some truth to that.
There's a lot of and seriously, there's a ton of stress, there's a lot of expense, and, I think now the federal standard is like 70 cents a mile. It's not just the gasoline, it's insurance and replacement costs. I will say that in my previous job where I had those 2-hour commutes, I had a little laptop computer, and I used my phone as a mobile hotspot to, get a fair amount of work done on the train too, but, that was the exception to the rule, and I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, it's probably not quite as much fun or as productive as it could be. So you switched to working from home remotely with Coalition. For people who have that gumption, we'll call it, that get up and go, that self motivation, which you highlighted, what are some of the other challenges of working from home? And maybe what are some of your remedies? Like what were the challenges you faced as you started getting into a more regular work from home routine? And how did you solve for them? Either equipment or habits or whatever that might be.
Yeah, I'll go back to the mobile hotspot since I just mentioned it. At home, as opposed to the office, you're having a reliable internet connection, which is vital to. The last thing you want is talking to a prospect about to close a deal, and you drop the internet connection. So you in the office, we always had ultra reliable connections. At home, that's probably one of the most the top technical challenge. As a backup, I had my phone as a mobile hotspot. Towards the end, I had fiber as a primary internet connection, and I had the cable as a backup Wi-Fi connection that would automatically um, kick in if the primary went out, and that was pretty good. But there, you're paying for two internet connections every month, so that's a bit something. The other thing that you need to provide, of course, is a space. Now we have
Mm.
a two-bedroom home. It's a small second bedroom. I've repurposed it now that we've retired as a crafts room for my wife and her family. But you do need to have a place that is relatively quiet. I will say that with the laptop, and we were using Zoom, you could blur out the background. Now, as the sort of the face of the company, I tried to make the room sort of a nice office type presence. And I'll throw this in here just because it's a recurring theme. In what we were doing, I looked at it less as a business. Our clients were business people, but we're more professionals. I told other people, think of it like if people were going to a doctor or a lawyer. They're coming to us for
Mm.
our specialized knowledge. So I always tried to dress nice, have the background in a professional type setting so that people come to us and there's that trust factor, which is very important, as you know. But
Yep.
you can
Yep.
blur out the background. A lot of people do that. So you don't necessarily need a dedicated second room. The other thing that is, of course, a challenge is if there's noise in the background. My wife one time was vacuuming in the hallway outside, and I couldn't hear what I was saying to the other person on the other end, but the other person on the other end, they didn't hear the vacuuming. The
Mm.
point is, a lot of these microphones these days, whether it's on a separate camera as I have or the built-in camera on a laptop, have very directional microphones. So that's goes a long way. Sometimes there's things, if it's just household noise like a dog barking or something, that actually adds a little authenticity to it as long as
Yeah.
it's not an interruption. But sound and picture, make sure that those are controlled, and that's usually a second bedroom, which is on you if you're at home.
Yeah. So space, a good microphone. How important are routines in being able to preserve work from home? I think one of the things that we saw from people who were transitioning to work from home, especially during COVID, they kind of struggled because they lacked the structure of a work day with their family or with whoever they shared the room with. There was this some assumption that since you're home, you're available. I can grab you whenever I want. I can interrupt whenever I want. And in sometimes it even created relationship issues where someone expected to be able to do those things. And you're like, wait, you're on a call. Yeah, how important are routines in terms of a successful remote work experience?
That's a very important point, and I would say to anyone who's considering work from home, don't consider it as like a vacation. You're in the office, whether the office is with you, whether it's at home or at some other building elsewhere, uh, you are basically the center of the office. You need to be there, be clean, get up at a regular hour, get cleaned up. I know some of the people say, I don't want to come on camera because my hair isn't fixed up or whatever.
Hmm.
I would always make sure that I was as presentable at 9 o'clock business time, whether it was here at home or in the office. If I had, and that's the thing. And then try to eat at a regular time. Sometimes we have to work through lunch. That's okay, and you grab lunch when you can. If it's a more an important thing, go for it. But try to stay to those routines. That's going to probably get you further along than anything else on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think that's just such a big one for me. I'm now 15 years in or whatever it is at remote work, and I think that even COVID, having worked remotely before COVID, I found that as my family was coming home. The kids were home from school. The wife wasn't going out as much because everything was closed. There was this sort of like, we've got to reestablish some of these routines. I had to reestablish my routines. I got really comfortable with sweatshirts and sweatpants and Crocs, and I was just like, I need to go back to that. Really approaching this like it's a job. You've mentioned sort of preparing yourself appearance wise and having some preparation that goes into that. I think that helps, almost like a mental switch, where like I'm going to work now and I'm done from work and I can take off the button up and I'm off of work, and that helps. Uh, One of our digital producers, or project manager, if you're not familiar with some of the coalition naming conventions, had said, dress for the job your clients want you to have, which I really loved as a quote. Basically, the idea was present yourself in a way that your clients, the expectations they have for you, are going to be met. Sure, you can be comfortable. Sure, you can look good. But at the same time, if your client is going to expect someone who's very artistic as a designer, dress for that. If someone's going to want a very put together project manager who's going to be on top of everything, some level of togetherness is probably going to be helpful. And in your role, where you're that consultant and you're that service layer with the digital strategy team, I think that was really, really important for you and other team members to have done that.
I'll just add here, we do have some latitude. There's an expectation of people in the tech industry, like you see at the Apple corporate meetings,
Yeah,
they'll be wearing T-shirts or whatever. And
sure.
and that's fine. As long as it's neat and clean. That's what my mom used to say.
Yep. Yep. That's, yeah, definitely. Like, how is it put together? And I think you did a great job. I always appreciated that you were not using the blurred background. I think it does, like you said, makes you more real in some ways. You're not just locked in a storage unit someplace in Pasadena, and only get out on weekends if you've worked with enough clients or something like that. Um, Now, so working from home also tends to create sometimes can create some health challenges. Just sitting at a computer for a long time, it's kind of a nature of tech jobs, but by the very nature of not leaving your house, sometimes you're sitting around more. You have sometimes just a lack of ergonomic tools or equipment. Did you ever experience any challenges with either of those? And maybe what were some things that you did just to help make sure you stayed on top Doug, peak Doug form?
Yeah, that's pretty low bar to achieve. But and seriously, having a chair. I've been working at a desk for, oh good Lord, how many, 40 years or something. One of the first things I learned is if I didn't have a proper chair, um, not only would the lower back hurt, but things would go wrong in the shoulders and the elbows, things that you wouldn't think of. I saw this wonderful article in the LA Times when we were still reading paper that had ergonomics. I built my first ergonomic chair from scratch, and it was tailored to my dimensions. Right now, I'm just using an inexpensive secretarial chair, but it's provided me great support. So, in that, that's that. The It is important to get up and move about. So after dinner, we'll just go to the store to walk around or something like that, just to get out of the house a little bit. It helps the mind too. You get stir crazy if you're just in the house all the time. That's one thing that is important I hadn't mentioned. On the weekends, my wife and I, she was a preschool teacher for 25 years, so there's no bigger Disney fanatic. That I don't know if you can see in the background, that's a Alice in Wonderland case. So anyway, so we have passes. We go to Disneyland every week, and we put in over 10,000 steps. So it would be better if we put in 2,000 every day, but it can't work out that way. So on the weekends, we get out and do as much as we can. We do gardening, Disney or whatever. During the week, just go to local stores or go walk around the block. Get out of the house. It's good for the mind and the body. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I do think like that. Those, even just those setting breaks
Yeah.
are sometimes really helpful. Like just kind of having like I'm in a different spot, like helps refresh, because it can feel, I think sometimes just the sameness can feel, even if the job is interesting, you find it engaging, the people are good. Sometimes just being in the same place 24 hours a day can, almost like that COVID experience for a lot of us, where we just felt, a little too cloistered and needed to have
Mhm.
moments of respite from that.
Doctors will say that you should take 10 minutes out of every hour away from your desk, but I don't think they take 10 minutes out. They can, but but the moral is still valid. Get up and out as you can. I think you and Carl have had standing desks where you alternate between standing
Yep.
and sitting. Has that been helpful?
Yeah, I actually prefer, the only time I like to sit during the day is when I'm doing these recordings just because of the spot in my
Hmm.
office. But I stand most of the day. So by and large, I'll go to my computer probably around 6:30 in the morning or so. And that's a standing desk. I now have a little treadmill underneath it,
Oh.
which I've enjoyed. And I'll basically be standing till probably about 6. And so it's 12 hours per day. But when I first, in Joel and I were first starting Coalition, I worked at a desk, and I started having back and wrist problems and things like that. And I was pretty aware that this wasn't going to be a long-term career thing for me without a lot of pain unless I found some alternatives. And that was, the standing desk was sort of when I bought in. I would strongly suggest either the desktop risers that you can change. They have the manual ones, which are quite
Mhm.
affordable. The computer that I'm at now that, has the little like,
Oh.
uh, button that I can do to kind of do that. I know Carl has also done the same thing. So I would say standing is actually a remarkable thing. I'd read some anthropologist type guy someplace, talking about remote work, and he had said, humans really weren't made to sit. We're not like particularly capable sitters in terms of our human form factor.
Mhm.
And so he suggested standing or walking as being a real big addition for those who are starting to work from home more regularly.
Yeah, and just breaking it up and not just doing the same thing all the time will help you.
Yep. So what else? We've covered setting. We've covered kind of preparing yourself. We've covered expectations and routines with family. We've talked about microphones. I think we touched on backup internet a little bit
Mhm.
earlier as being one. Any other call outs that are really have been helpful for you in terms of preserving your well-being and your effectiveness as a remote work team member for a long time?
Yeah, I wrote down some notes. I think the two things that um, well, to go back to a point you made earlier about I had to work in the office in Culver City for quite some time. What was interesting is if I wanted to talk to somebody in just even the room next door, they were usually busy and we'd have to basically make an appointment by email or by chat. So whether we're, across the country or right next door, it's those, again, it goes to I tell people if you want to see your doctor, you have to make an appointment with them. They're a busy person. So if you can, I loved it that we had the chats available because sometimes people were available right away. If I had a PPC question, I could chat Ashok, who's one of the best PPC experts in the world on our team, and he'd get back to me. Or the Deepak and Kanika about SEO technical issues and so forth. And Michael or Dylan about development issues. We have this wonderful brain trust, as I say. The chats and the group chats were very effective, as well as emails for making appointments or getting more immediate answers, as I had talked about earlier. Setting agendas for any meetings that you have is very important, or
Mm,
any list of tasks. I always had a list of tasks, and I would prioritize them. Not that you're going to give short shrift to the small clients, but you'll do a respectable job on them. But if you've got a huge job coming on down the line, better make sure you get to that. That has to be prioritized in all its parts. I think overall, this concept of prioritizing work, whether you're in the office or especially at home, the sense of giving structure to your day, which
mm,
tasks do you get at? Jordan, you have a recurring email that comes out about this, and that
yep.
is very good. Prioritizing your work is going to get you through the day. And you may not get through everything, but you'll get to the things that you need to first, and you go from there. So. Um, the other thing that I'll put down as from my notes, you talked about anthropologists and ergonomics and the human body. One of the things, my background's in the biological sciences, and one of the most interesting facts I learned, which applies here, is that there is more musculature in the human face than in any other
Mhm.
part of the body. And the same thing with other primates, which indicates that facial expressions, you know, oh, that was a really good cake.
Mhm.
Can
Yep.
can tell you. So having your camera on whenever possible, I mean, it has a really subtle, instinctive feel, and it can communicate feelings and emotions that beyond what your words can. It's the body language, but applied to the face. Being able to read faces, you talked about having face-to-face meetings are the most
Yep.
effective. The next most is with the camera on, and then phone calls don't give you that same effect. So
Yep.
that is extremely important. So prioritizing your work and making sure that you have face-to-face contact with people. Those are the last two things I had noted about what you can do to really help make your work remotely, not remotely good.
Mm. Yeah, and I would say I think like kind of expanding on that thought, there is generally with remote work, there's this theme like that it is okay to be less worky than work. Like you can be a little more maybe lazy about what you're prioritizing, about your diligence, about how you prepare yourself. That sort of exists out there as a theme, and sometimes in certain forums like Reddit, when you look at remote work, it's actually sort of gamed. The conversations about how to game remote
Mhm.
work so that you can do less and still have a job. And I think that's probably why big companies have pushed back on remote work so strongly. Is it's the sense of not knowing whether they're being gamed that really creates some of those things. And so I think like again, really having that thought in mind, like I'm showing up to work and I'm going to approach it like it's work. I think does make a big difference in terms of whether you're successful or not. I think also that latter thought of showing up and being a person is really significant. We talk about with clients how they can go and they can talk to a person in another room, and that builds relationship and loyalty. And you need to be able to do the same thing, where to be the advocate for their business and to advocate for our approach, you need to be a human that they view as someone they can say, I'm going to be loyal to, and I'm going to stick to. And these face-to-face calls are much much more helpful that way than if you are just on a phone or just on a chat or a project management post.
Mhm.
I always liked the analogy of if you call into your bank and you get the dreaded menu, or now with like Comcast, they have this awful AI thing that happens. You'll find very pleasant people who yell and probably say some terrible things to that system. Now, the moment someone picks up the phone, their tone comes magically back. And some of those words they might have been using that their mother wouldn't have been happy with suddenly go out the window. And it's because there's a little more human. Now, their tone might still be a little aggressive. They still might be more direct. If you put them in front of a customer service person, they're much less likely, I think, face to face to even say some of those things. There was a study that said banks found they could reduce robberies by putting someone in the lobby who smiled at you as you came in. Like, hi, Doug, I know you're not here to rob this place today. And then it worked pretty effectively.
I'll be. Charles, who's on our sales team and has been selling forever, even has taught many, many salespeople. Um, he said at one meeting, he said, "How many of you have had problems with uh, customer support?" And everybody raised their hand. He talked a little bit further. And then his next question was, "How many of you have had problems with," I forget how he put it, but customer problem solving or something where it's not an adversarial relationship, it's us problem solving together. If you can bring that to the table so that your client or your prospect knows you're on their side, this facial connection, and even working from home, it really personalizes it. All my clients knew me as Doug. I wasn't just the whatever title. I was Doug, and they saw me for who I was, even if it was a little bit goofy at times or whatever. They that trust factor is invaluable. So authentic, at one of my favorite quote favorite partners. We have hundreds of partners, everything from Shopify to Klaviyo and so forth. But one of these partners, they make quote authentic looking videos that are actually professionally made videos, just because like the Instagram videos that have such impact. Authenticity sells, and anything that you can do to bring to the table, I mean, authentically authentic, that's going to help your sales, your project management, every aspect of relationship with the customer. Again, and what you were saying about dressing for the person how they expect you, put yourself in the other person's shoes. I always said that was the primary job of the digital strategist. If you do that, you're living the good life, the golden rule and all that, and people, that's going to be your most effective way of working with people.
So let's pivot and look at moving from maybe the employee side, so working remotely. What are some things about Coalition or that a company can do that makes remote work more or less successful?
I think the number one thing that you and management did a coalition that made it best for all the employees is to be very transparent and very communicative. So once a week, I had the one-on-one meeting with Carl. So um, I get to know him as a person, and we're getting from him the rules and the news and updates that we need to, but also uh, uh, as people getting to know one another. So if during the course of the week some tense moment comes up because of some misunderstanding, we can work it out because it's Carl and Doug working it out. Also, then once a week, you hosted the company meetings. You are very transparent about where we are in terms of revenue and challenges, and each of the teams grading them need for improvement or stellar job. And this helped us coordinate with the different teams. And I'll tell you, that makes me feel like I'm part of something. I am of value to management, to the rest of the company. And during the course of the week, and I came across this numerous times, and working with another team who got a need for improvement, it seems like everyone came to their aid and tried to help them come ahead. Or if somebody was doing a great job, they said, "Great job, Doug," or whatever. It's that camaraderie again. And by having this frequent communication and transparency, that's the number one thing that a company can do to make all their employees feel valued and part of the whole, whether they're working from home or from the office.
We made a big emphasis on trying to keep our organizational flat or at least accessible, where there was a sense of freedom. You could go where you needed to. And you've touched on that a couple of times. How significant was that, do you think, for your success as a remote team member, but also just maybe in general, how significant do you think it was for Coalition's success?
Oh, it's absolutely imperative being able again to have this brain trust, as I say. I'll go back to something I should have mentioned but didn't, but would always mention to the prospects. Last year we had 250,000 people apply for jobs with Coalition, and over the course of the 16, was it 16 years that you, yeah,
Hmm.
that we skills tested 250,000 job applicants. So when I say that we've got the best people in the business, I mean I literally mean it. And so when I tell the clients I'm reaching out to Ashok or to Deepak or these other folks, it's not just somebody down the street, the that was me 20 years ago, the kid in the basement building websites. No, these are folks who are top of the business. You are going to get the best answer in the business. I don't care what other agency in the world you go to, you're not going to get a better answer. You might get a different answer, a self-serving answer there's a lot of black hat people out there. I don't care. They
Hmm.
can do whatever they want. But from us, you're going to get the best answer in the business. So this flat structure, being able to reach out and getting the answers in short order is going not good, not just for me, but most importantly for the prospects and the clients. They appreciate that. The ones who know what the ones who are smart enough to know that they better deal with the best people in the business, they appreciate that.
Yeah. Any other call outs to give you maybe a chance to review Coalition as an employer, as a remote workplace? Anything else that you would call out as being really significant in your run with us? I mean, you were not here for an insignificant period of time before your retirement. Well, again, maybe what are some of the high level things you'd say to somebody else who's considering a career at Coalition, or is looking at one of our remote job postings right now?
Yeah, again, I'll go back to that number one thing. If you're not self-disciplined and self-motivated, forget it. You're not going to be able to do this. It's not that you have to be, down on yourself all the time. That's not it. You need to be supportive of yourself, and be honest with yourself, knowing that you don't know everything, but you've got, again, this brain trust here who's more than happy to help you. Likewise, if someone asks you a question, be open to helping them too. It's all this teamwork business. I mean, the concept of teamwork has become so cliche, but it's absolutely essential to making things work. And like you said, that's why we're called coalition, because we work together. Um, Working in partnership with our clients was always a big thing in both marketing and website development. They are the subject matter experts, so the teamwork extends to them. So in that sense, we'll always be, if our clients are part of this team, we're always going to be remote from them. We're not working in their office. We are working as professional consultants at a distance. So there's always going to be that remote aspect to this work. If you're comfortable with that, being able to deal with people. Now, going back, say, 20 years, I was working with doctors and lawyers in Pasadena. It was all face to face, building them websites and so on. But I couldn't do for them what I can do with the whole team of people here. And the only way to make that possible is to work remotely. I think the key thing that is the the big plus to always keep in mind when you're working remotely is, as I said, we've tested people all over the world. I mean, there's no way that we could get all these people from India and the Philippines and Latin America and the Middle East, as well as throughout the United States and, say, Europe, all together in the same office. But by having access to all these people, I mean, this is what the biggest corporations in the world do, and for good reason. We're going to find the best people in the world, and as long as we can get over these little technical aspects, we can. If there's a will, there's a way. If you're willing to work with the best people in the world, then this is the way to do it. And any of these technical issues, getting microphones and stuff, that'll all fall in place.
Good. Thank you. We're at the end of our time, and so I want to say thank you for being here, Doug.
Likewise.
Usually we have a partner of some kind show up, or a business of some kind show up. I give them a chance to promo themselves and what they do, but since you are retired, and I don't think you finished your initial round of birdhouses, that'll be available soon. Um, I'd love if maybe you could promo Coalition. So again, make that pitch, if you don't mind, to someone who is looking at remote work, at CT, has applied, done their skills test, is considering a job offer. Would you mind giving us the pitch?
Yeah. When you work at a company, the most important thing is the people. And I've had the privilege of working with some wonderful people throughout my career. My last job with great people, they went on to work with Universal Studios and top pharma companies and so on. Wonderfully talented and nice people. And that's the key thing here. As I've sometimes told people, I've been here over 8 years, worked with hundreds of team members. There was only one, I mean, literally just one out of those hundreds who was a little bit difficult to work with. He was very brilliant. He's long gone. The rest of these hundreds of people I've worked with, the key thing that makes it a wonderful experience to work here, it's challenging but rewarding, is that they all tend to be problem solvers. We're not putting ego in front of getting the best solution, period, for our clients, for ourselves, whatever, that's problem solving. And being nice with other people is important. I've worked with a lot of the development jobs, and the last two heads of the development department. They met their wives through the company, and they and their wives, and my
We're
friends
not
and my
we're not promoting the dating scene at Coalition,
oh,
Doug.
oh,
Just
I'm so, I put that on Facebook. I'll take that down. But they and their wives and Francis and I, we went to Disneyland together. I mean, this is and like Gus, who will edit this, he has a standing invitation to come to Disneyland. We'll show him where the hidden Mickeys are. I've met some wonderfully talented and nice people, friends through the company. You don't have to be friends with people at a company. The people you work with don't even have to be nice people. You can get a lot of work done otherwise. But it's a nice situation where you have talent and niceness come together. And that's what I've experienced here. And it's in large measure because we're so selective. As I said, when I was retiring, the HR people are sort of the unsung heroes because we don't see them on a daily basis, but they've brought together this wonderfully talented and nice team of people to work with from wherever we can find them in the world. And so if that means remote, so be it. I get to eat lunch with my wife.
Awesome. Well, Doug, again, thank you for your amazing time at Coalition. I said this on your last day that you showed up as a person in a way that many people don't. Even in the midst of a great company like Coalition, with a lot of great people, you just brought yourself to work and you showed up. You were human. You were a wonderful human. And so thank you for taking the time to just help us solve some remote work pain. I hope that your career as a craft supporting role member, or perhaps the birdhouses take off and we start to see them on shelves at Hobby Lobby nearby. We'll keep an eye out. But I wish the best for you, and thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you. You and Joel and Carl, you always treated me like family, and there's nothing better than that. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, everyone, we'll be back soon with another episode of Cyber Salve, where we dig in on your digital aches and pains, and we look to find some ways of curing or treating those, as the case may be. Stay tuned. Do like and subscribe and follow and listen wherever your favorite podcasting platform is. You can find us on YouTube, on Spotify, and everywhere else. We'll see you again soon.